The heart monitor screamed its final warning as lightning split the sky above Ridgewood Memorial Hospital in Ashford, Wyoming. Three military surgeons backed away from the dying soldier strapped to the ICU bed until a young nurse with scars hidden beneath her scrubs whispered 6 words that froze every officer in the room. Words no civilian should ever know. Words that proved she wasn't just another trauma nurse from Portland. Before I continue, if you're enjoying this story, please stick around until the very end. Like this video, drop a comment with your city so I can see how far this story has traveled, and let me know what you think happens next. The patient had no name, at least not one anyone was allowed to speak aloud. His chart read J. Martinez in generic block letters, but the 3-star general who'd arrived by helicopter at 0200 hours hadn't bothered with pleasantries or paperwork. He'd walked straight into the ICU, taken one look at the broken man on the bed, and said only, "Keep him alive. That's an order." Then he'd left. That had been 4 days ago. Now, at 11:47 p.m. on a Thursday that felt like it might never end, Sarah Brennan stood in the supply closet with her back against the shelves and her hand shaking so badly she couldn't open the medication drawer. 28 years old, registered nurse, 2 years at Ridgewood Memorial. Before that, 6 years doing things she wasn't supposed to talk about in places that didn't officially exist. She'd left that life behind, buried it, told herself she'd never go back. But the man dying 3 doors down had dragged it all back to the surface, and now she couldn't breathe right. Couldn't think straight, couldn't stop seeing the things she'd spent 2 years trying to forget. "Brennan!" She turned. Dr. Victor Hale stood in the doorway, arms crossed, expression carved from stone. Chief of surgery. 15 years of experience. A man who didn't waste time on small talk or sympathy. "You're off Martinez," he said. Sarah blinked. "What?" "You heard me. I'm reassigning you to post-op recovery. Michelle will cover ICU tonight." "I don't understand." "You don't need to understand. You need to follow orders." His voice dropped. "You've been hovering over that patient like he's your personal project. You're emotionally compromised. It's affecting your judgment." Sarah's jaw tightened. "I'm doing my job." "Your job is to follow protocols and defer to the attending physicians, not to second-guess treatment plans or request diagnostics outside your scope of practice." "He's not responding to treatment because nobody's listening." "Enough!" Hale stepped closer, lowering his voice to something sharp and cold. "I don't know what you think you see in that room, but you're a nurse, not a diagnostician, not a field medic, and definitely not military command. Stay in your lane, or you're gone." The threat hung in the air between them. Sarah said nothing. Hale walked away. She stood there for another 30 seconds, listening to her heartbeat in her ears, before she pushed off the shelf and headed back toward the ICU anyway. She wasn't assigned to Martinez anymore, but she couldn't just leave him there to die. The ICU was quieter than it should have been, too quiet. Sarah slipped past the nurse's station, nodding at Michelle, a kind woman in her 40s who asked too many questions and meant well but had never seen the inside of a combat zone. Michelle was already busy with another patient, which meant Martinez's room was unmonitored. Sarah stepped inside and closed the door softly behind her. The man on the bed looked nothing like a soldier. He looked like a corpse waiting for paperwork. Pale skin stretched over sharp bones. Bandages covered his torso, arms, and left shoulder. IV lines snaked into both arms. A ventilator pushed oxygen into his lungs with mechanical precision. Heart monitor beeped slow and irregular. His eyes were closed, but Sarah knew better than to believe he was resting. She'd seen this before. Not in a hospital. In a safe house outside Kandahar, where a captured operative had shut himself down so completely the interrogators thought he'd slipped into a coma. It had taken 3 days and a behavioral psychologist with top-secret clearance to pull him back. This was the same thing. Sarah moved to the side of the bed, checking the monitor. Heart rate 48, blood pressure 90/55, oxygen saturation 91%. All wrong. Not dying, surviving. She leaned closer, her voice barely above a whisper. "I know you can hear me." Nothing. "I know what you're doing." Still nothing. "You think you're still in the field. You think this is a trap." His fingers twitched. Sarah's breath caught. It wasn't random, it was deliberate. She watched his right hand, counting the intervals between movements. 3 taps. Pause. 2 taps. Pause. 1 tap. 3, 2, 1. Code. Her throat went dry. "You're not captured," she whispered. "You're in Ashford, Wyoming, Ridgewood Memorial Hospital. You've been here 4 days. You were extracted. You made it out." His vitals didn't change, but his fingers stopped moving. Sarah glanced at the door, then back at the man on the bed. She knew what she had to do, and she knew what it would cost her. Dr. Hale was in the conference room with 2 other surgeons when Sarah found him. She didn't knock. "He's not in a coma," she said. All 3 men turned to stare at her. Hale's expression darkened. "Excuse me?" "Martinez. He's not comatose. He's in a defensive psychological shutdown. His body thinks he's still in a combat situation, so it's conserving resources and rejecting external intervention." One of the other surgeons, Dr. Raj Patel, a trauma specialist, frowned. "That's not a recognized medical diagnosis." "It's a survival response," Sarah said. "I've seen it before." "Where?" Hale's voice was flat. Sarah hesitated. She couldn't tell them the truth. Couldn't explain that she'd spent 3 years embedded with special operations units in the Middle East, that she'd trained in combat trauma and psychological resilience, that she knew exactly what Martinez was doing because she'd been taught the same protocols. "I read about it in a military medical journal," she lied. Hale leaned back in his chair. "And you think you're qualified to diagnose a condition that our entire surgical team missed?" "I think if you keep treating him like a standard trauma case, he's going to die." "He's dying because his body is shutting down," Patel said. "We've tried everything: antibiotics, blood transfusions, surgical intervention." "You're making it worse," Sarah interrupted. "Every procedure you run convinces him he's being interrogated. He's not fighting the treatment, he's fighting you." Silence. Hale stood slowly. "Get out." "Dr. Hale, you're done. I gave you a warning. You ignored it. Now you're finished." He pointed at the door. "Security will escort you out. Clean out your locker. You're terminated effective immediately." Sarah's heart hammered against her ribs. "He's going to die if you don't listen. Out, now." She didn't move. Hale picked up the phone on the desk and dialed security. Sarah turned and walked out before they could drag her. What? She made it as far as the parking lot before her hands started shaking again. The night air was cold and sharp, cutting through her scrubs like glass. She stood beside her car, a beat-up Honda Civic with 180,000 miles and a broken taillight, and stared at the hospital. She'd just lost her job, her income, her stability. And for what? A dying man who didn't even know her name. A man who would probably be dead by morning. Sarah unlocked the car and slid into the driver's seat, but she didn't start the engine. She just sat there, staring at the steering wheel, trying to remember how to breathe. Her phone buzzed. A text from Michelle. "They're pulling the plug tomorrow, 6 a.m. "I'm sorry." Sarah closed her eyes. She'd failed. Again. Just like before. Just like the mission in Mosul that had ended with 3 dead operators and a dishonorable discharge she'd barely avoided by agreeing to walk away quietly. She'd promised herself she'd never get involved again, never put herself in a position where someone's life depended on her. But here she was, and she couldn't just drive away. Sarah didn't go home. She sat in the parking lot until 3 a.m., watching the hospital through the windshield, running through every scenario she could think of. None of them ended well. At 3:15, her phone rang. Unknown number. She answered anyway. "Sarah Brennan?" The voice was male, clipped, professional. "Who is this?" "Major Eric Lawson, U.S. Army Intelligence. I need you to come back inside the hospital, now." Her stomach dropped. "How did you get this number?" "We've been monitoring the situation. You were right about Martinez. We need your help." "I just got fired." "I know. I'm reversing that. You're reinstated as of this moment, and you're being temporarily assigned to a classified medical operation under military jurisdiction." Sarah's breath caught. "What?" "Martinez isn't just another soldier. He's carrying intelligence that could expose a network of operatives embedded in our own command structure. If he dies, that information dies with him. And a lot of people want him dead. Who? Come inside. I'll explain everything. The line went dead. Sarah sat there for 10 seconds, staring at the phone. Then she started the car. But Major Lawson was waiting in the ICU when she arrived. Tall, mid-40s, graying hair, sharp eyes that didn't miss anything. He wore civilian clothes, jeans, a dark jacket, but he carried himself like someone who'd spent decades giving orders and expecting them to be followed. 2 other men stood behind him, both armed, both watching the hallway like they expected trouble. "Miss Brennan?" Lawson said. "Thank you for coming. I didn't have much choice." "You always have a choice." He gestured toward Martinez's room. "But right now, he doesn't, and neither do we." Sarah crossed her arms. "What's really going on?" Lawson glanced at the 2 guards, then back at Sarah. Martinez and his team were sent on a Black Ops extraction mission 3 weeks ago. Target was a high-value asset in a hostile region. The mission was compromised before they even landed. Someone leaked their position, their route, and their extraction timeline. They walked into an ambush. How many survived? 1. Sarah looked through the window at the man on the bed. "He's been in and out of consciousness since the extraction," Lawson continued. "But every time we try to debrief him, he shuts down. We think he's protecting the intelligence he's carrying. He doesn't trust anyone." "Why should he?" Sarah said quietly. "Someone on your side tried to kill him." Lawson didn't deny it. "We need you to bring him back," he said. "You're the only person who's gotten through to him." I whispered 6 words. That's not exactly a breakthrough. "It's more than anyone else has managed." Lawson stepped closer. "You have field experience. I read your file. You know how these operators think. You know what he's going through." Sarah's jaw tightened. "That file is sealed. Not from me." She turned away, staring at Martinez through the glass. "Even if I get through to him, he's not going to trust military command. Not after what happened." "Then we don't use military command," Lawson said. "We use you. I'm a nurse. You're a veteran. You're someone who understands the cost of betrayal." His voice softened slightly. "And you're someone who doesn't give up on people, even when everyone else does." Sarah said nothing. "We have 6 hours before they pull life support," Lawson said. "After that, he's gone. And so is any chance of finding the people who killed his team." She looked at him. "And if I can't bring him back, then we've lost." Sarah turned back to the window. Martinez's heart rate had dropped to 44. "What do you need from me?" she asked. "Everything," Lawson said. "Bet." The room was locked down within 20 minutes. Guards at the door, communications jammed, security cameras looped, no one in or out without Lawson's authorization. Sarah stood at Martinez's bedside, alone, except for the 2 soldiers stationed by the door. Lawson had given her 30 minutes. She had no idea what she was supposed to do with them. Martinez looked worse than before. His skin had taken on a grayish tint. His breathing was shallow. The monitors beeped slower, softer, like his body was winding down. Sarah pulled a chair close and sat. "I don't know if you can hear me," she said quietly, "but I'm going to talk anyway." No response. "My name is Sarah Brennan. I'm a nurse here. I'm also a veteran. I served with forward medical units attached to special operations. I know what you've been through. I know what it feels like to wake up and not know who to trust." His fingers twitched, just once. Sarah leaned closer. "I know you're protecting something. I know you think if you wake up, they'll take it from you. And maybe they will. But if you don't wake up, the people who killed your team win. Is that what you want?" The monitor beeped. Steady, too steady. "You're not a prisoner," Sarah said. "You're not being interrogated. You're in a hospital in Wyoming. You've been here 4 days. Major Lawson is outside. He's trying to find the people who set you up, but he can't do it without you." Still nothing. Sarah exhaled slowly. "I had a team once. 3 operators. Good people. We were sent into Mosul to extract a defector. Intel said the route was clear. It wasn't. We walked into a kill zone. I was the only one who made it out." Her voice cracked. "I spent 2 years trying to figure out what went wrong. Who leaked the mission? Who wanted us dead? I never found out, and it's eaten at me every day since." She reached out and placed her hand on his. You have a chance I didn't, she said. You can fight back. You can make them pay, but you have to wake up. Silence. Then, his hand moved. Not a twitch, a grip. His fingers closed around hers, weak but deliberate. Sarah's breath caught. Martinez? His eyes opened, just barely, unfocused, clouded, but awake. He stared at her for a long moment, and then his lips moved. Authentication. His voice was a rasp, barely audible. Sarah's heart pounded. What? Authenticate, he repeated. Prove you're real. He thought this was still part of the trap. He thought she was part of the interrogation. Sarah's mind raced. She needed to say something only a real operator would know, something classified, something that couldn't be faked. She leaned closer, her voice dropping to barely a whisper. Emerald Crossing, October 2019, Fallujah Safe House. You pulled 2 contractors out of a firefight after their convoy was hit. One of them was a medic named Torres. He told me about you 3 years ago in a bar in Virginia, said you saved his life. Martinez stared at her. Then his grip tightened. Torres is dead, he whispered. Sarah's chest tightened. I know. He died in a training accident 6 months ago. Martinez's eyes closed again, but his hand didn't let go. Not an accident, he said. The monitor beeped faster. His heart rate spiked. Martinez, they killed him, he rasped. They're killing everyone who knows. The door burst open. Lawson stepped in, followed by the guards. What's happening? He's awake, Sarah said. But he's in distress. Martinez's eyes snapped open again, locking onto Lawson. Who the hell is that? He demanded, his voice stronger now. Major Eric Lawson, Army Intelligence. Get him out! Martinez, I'm here to help. Get him out! Martinez tried to sit up, but his body betrayed him. He collapsed back onto the bed, gasping. I don't talk to command. Not until I know who's clean. Lawson's jaw tightened. Son, we're running out of time. Then you better start running faster. Martinez turned his head towards Sarah. I talked to her, nobody else. Lawson looked at Sarah. She looked back, just as surprised. You're a nurse, Lawson said. I'm also the only person he trusts right now, Sarah replied. Lawson stared at her for a long moment. Then he turned to the guards. Clear the room. Nobody comes in except Brennan. Sir, that's an order. The guards hesitated, then left. Lawson followed, pausing at the door. You have 1 hour. Get me everything he knows. Then he was gone. Sarah turned back to Martinez. His eyes were still open, watching her with an intensity that made her skin crawl. Why me? She asked. Because you didn't try to sell me hope, he said quietly. You just told me the truth. Sarah pulled the chair closer again. Then let's keep going with that. Who's trying to kill you? Martinez took a slow breath. Someone inside the chain of command. Someone with access to operational planning and real-time intelligence. They've been leaking missions for at least 2 years. My team was the 4th unit hit in 6 months. Do you have proof? I have a name. Sarah's pulse quickened. Who? Martinez's eyes locked onto hers. Colonel Richard Brennan, Army Intelligence, stationed at Fort Bragg. The room tilted. Sarah's breath stopped. What did you say? Brennan, Richard Brennan. He's the one feeding intel to... That's my father, Sarah whispered. Martinez stared at her. The monitor beeped louder, faster, and somewhere down the hall an alarm began to scream. Sarah's father had been dead for 3 years. At least, that's what the Army had told her. Training accident at Fort Bragg. Closed casket. Military honors. A folded flag she'd shoved into the back of her closet because looking at it made her want to scream. She'd never believed the story. Not really. But she'd learned to stop asking questions because every door she knocked on slammed shut in her face. And eventually, the grief turned into something else. Something colder. Now Martinez was telling her the man she'd buried wasn't dead at all. You're lying, she said. Martinez didn't blink. I wish I was. The alarm down the hall grew louder, joined by shouting voices and the sound of boots hitting linoleum in a dead sprint. Sarah's hands were numb. Her vision tunneled. My father died in 2021, she said. I was at the funeral. Then someone else is in that grave. That's impossible. Is it? Martinez pushed himself up slightly, grimacing. You served with forward units. You know how Black Ops work. You know how deep people can disappear when they need to. Sarah's throat closed. She did know. She'd seen operators vanish from rosters, their names scrubbed from mission logs, their faces replaced in photographs. She'd signed non-disclosure agreements that made it clear some deaths were performances, some funerals were theater. But her father? Why would he fake his death, she asked. Because someone was getting close to exposing him, Martinez said, and dead men don't get investigated. The door flew open. Lawson stepped in, his face tight. We have a problem. What kind of problem? Sarah asked, her voice shaking. The kind where someone just tried to access Martinez's medical records from an IP address traced back to a server in Moscow. Lawson's eyes flicked to Martinez. Whoever wants you dead knows you're awake. Martinez's jaw tightened. How fast can you move me? Not fast enough. Lawson turned to one of the guards. Lock down this floor. No one in or out without my clearance. The guard nodded and disappeared into the hallway. Sarah stood, her legs unsteady. If my father is alive, if he's involved in this, then you're compromised, Lawson said bluntly. And I can't have you in this room. She stays, Martinez said. Lawson's expression hardened. She's a liability. She's the only person I trust, which makes her the only person you've got. Martinez's voice was raw but firm. You want answers? She stays. Otherwise, I stop talking. Lawson stared at him, then at Sarah. If I find out you're feeding information to anyone, I'm not, Sarah snapped. I don't even know if what he's saying is true. It's true, Martinez said quietly, and you know it. You've known something was wrong for years. Sarah wanted to argue. She couldn't, because he was right. Lawson exhaled slowly. Fine, but you don't leave this floor, and you don't contact anyone outside this hospital. Understood? Sarah nodded. Lawson turned and walked out, barking orders into his radio. The door closed. Martinez slumped back against the pillows, his face pale and slick with sweat. You okay? No, Sarah said. I'm really not. Yeah, me neither. She sat back down, her hands trembling. Tell me everything. Martinez talked for 20 minutes straight, his voice hoarse and halting. He told her about the mission, about the intelligence that had come through channels so secure even the team's commanding officer hadn't questioned it, about the convoy that was supposed to meet them at the extraction point but never showed, about the firefight that erupted 30 seconds after they hit the ground. We were boxed in before we even knew what was happening, he said. Precision strikes, coordinated. They knew where we'd be when we'd be there, and exactly how many of us there were. How many made it out? Sarah asked. Just me, and only because I played dead long enough for them to stop checking. Sarah's chest tightened. Who were they? Mercenaries, Russian-backed, but not official military. The kind of contractors who get paid to clean up loose ends. Martinez paused, his eyes distant. They weren't trying to capture us. They were trying to erase us. And you think my father set it up? I know he did. Martinez reached for the water cup on the bedside table, his hand shaking. Sarah helped him lift it to his lips. He took a small sip, then continued. Before the mission, I was assigned to a joint task force investigating leaks in Special Operations Command. We'd traced 3 compromised missions back to the same source, a logistics handler with access to JSOC planning systems. JSOC? Joint Special Operations Command, the people who plan and authorize Black Ops missions. Martinez set the cup down. The handler went by the call sign Iron Wolf. We never got a real name, but we tracked communication patterns, financial transfers, encrypted message traffic. Everything pointed to someone inside Fort Bragg. And you think that's my father? I don't think. I know. Martinez reached into the collar of his hospital gown and pulled out a small flash drive on a chain around his neck. I pulled this off a dead drop in Kiev 2 days before my team got hit. It's got everything. Bank records, message logs, coordinates for every compromised mission in the last 18 months. Sarah stared at the drive. How did you get it out? Swallowed it before they put me on the evac bird. Passed it 3 days ago when I woke up for about 30 seconds. He tucked it back under the gown. Lawson doesn't know I have it yet. Why not? Because I don't know who I can trust in his chain of command. For all I know, he's part of it. Sarah's stomach twisted. Then why tell me? Martinez looked at her, his eyes hard and tired. Because you've got skin in the game now. If your father's involved, you're already a target, and if he's alive, he's going to come after you the second he finds out I talked. He wouldn't he? Martinez's voice was cold. You said it yourself. You never believed the story about his death. That means part of you already knows what kind of man he really is. Sarah's hands curled into fists. She wanted to defend him, wanted to believe her father was a good man who died serving his country. But the truth was simpler and uglier. She'd spent 3 years trying not to think about the inconsistencies in his death. The timing, the lack of details, the way everyone who'd served with him had refused to meet her eyes at the funeral. What do you need me to do? She asked. Help me stay alive long enough to get this drive to someone who can use it, Martinez said. And if your father shows up, don't hesitate. Don't hesitate to do what? Whatever it takes. The hospital felt different now. Sarah walked the ICU hallway with her eyes scanning every face, every shadow, every doorway. The guards Lawson had posted were professionals, stone-faced and silent, but she didn't know them, didn't trust them, didn't trust anyone. She found Lawson in the conference room, hunched over a laptop with 3 other officers she didn't recognize. Maps covered the table, satellite images, surveillance photos. Lawson looked up as she entered. You shouldn't be here. Martinez is stable for now, Sarah said, but he's not going to last much longer in that bed. His body's been in survival mode for too long. He needs a real facility with specialists who know how to handle trauma this severe. We're working on it. Work faster. One of the other officers, a woman in her 50s with steel gray hair and a major's insignia, raised an eyebrow. And you are? The nurse keeping your asset alive, Sarah said. The woman's expression didn't change. Major Patricia Voss. I'm overseeing security for this operation. If you have concerns about the patient's medical care, take them up with the hospital staff. The hospital staff tried to kill him, Sarah shot back. Or did you miss the part where they were pulling life support this morning? Voss leaned back in her chair. The hospital staff followed standard protocols for a patient with no brain activity and no chance of recovery. They didn't know what they were dealing with. And now they do? Now they're being kept in the dark, Lawson said, which is where they'll stay until we have the situation under control. Sarah crossed her arms. And when will that be? When we find out who's leaking intelligence and shut them down. Martinez already told you who it is. The room went silent. Voss's eyes narrowed. What did he tell you? Sarah hesitated. She didn't know these people. Didn't know if Martinez was right to suspect Lawson's team, but she also didn't have a choice. He said the leaks are coming from someone at Fort Bragg, she said carefully. Someone with access to JSOC planning systems. Lawson's jaw tightened. Did he give you a name? Sarah met his eyes. Not yet. It was a lie, and from the way Lawson's expression shifted, he knew it, but he didn't call her on it. Get back to the patient, he said, and don't share anything he tells you with anyone outside this room. That includes hospital staff, other nurses, and anyone claiming to be from command. Clear? Clear? Sarah turned and walked out before anyone could ask more questions. Her heart was hammering as she made her way back down the hallway. The fluorescent lights overhead flickered intermittently, casting shadows that seemed to move on their own. 2 nurses passed her without making eye contact, their voices hushed and tense. Everyone could feel it. The shift in the air, the sense that something was coming. Sarah pushed through the door to Martinez's room and stopped. He was sitting up, the IV torn from his arm, blood dripping onto the white sheets. What are you doing? She demanded. Getting ready to move, Martinez said. He'd pulled on a pair of scrub pants someone had left folded on the chair. His torso was still wrapped in bandages, but his eyes were alert, focused. We don't have much time. Time for what? For you to decide whose side you're on. Sarah closed the door behind her. I'm on your side. Are you? Martinez stood slowly, gripping the bed rail for support. Because the second your father finds out you helped me, he's going to come after you, and I need to know if you're ready for that. I already told you. Telling me and living it are 2 different things. Martinez's voice was rough. I've seen people freeze when it matters. I've seen soldiers who swore they'd do whatever it took hesitate at the worst possible moment. I need to know you won't. Sarah stepped closer. My father made his choice when he faked his death and started selling out his own people. If he comes after me, he's not my father anymore. He's just another enemy. Martinez studied her for a long moment, then he nodded. Good. He reached under the mattress and pulled out a scalpel he must have pocketed from the surgical tray earlier. Take this. Sarah took the blade, feeling its weight in her palm. Where did you? Doesn't matter. What matters is that you're armed. Martinez moved toward the window, peering through the blinds at the parking lot below. They'll come through the main entrance first, try to look official, but once they realize we're not cooperating, they'll switch tactics. How do you know? Because that's what I'd do. Sarah joined him at the window. The parking lot was mostly empty, just a few scattered vehicles under the yellow glow of the streetlights. But at the far edge, near the emergency entrance, 3 black SUVs sat idling. There, Martinez said, pointing. As Sarah watched, 6 men climbed out of the vehicles. They were dressed in civilian clothes, jeans, jackets, baseball caps, but they moved with the synchronized precision of trained operators. Mercenaries? Sarah asked. Probably. Your father wouldn't risk sending active military. Too many questions if something goes wrong. One of the men spoke into a radio, then gestured toward the hospital entrance. The group split up, 3 heading for the main doors, 3 circling around toward the emergency bay. Sarah's mouth went dry. We need to warn Lawson. Lawson already knows. He's got surveillance on every entrance. Martinez turned away from the window. But he doesn't know about the service tunnels. What service tunnels? Every hospital this old has them. Steam pipes, electrical conduits, maintenance access. They run under the whole building. Martinez grabbed the wheelchair and pushed it toward the door. I scouted them the first night I was conscious, just in case. You were barely awake. I've been barely awake in worse places. He opened the door, checked the hallway, then looked back at her. You coming or not? Sarah didn't hesitate. She followed him out. The service corridor was hidden behind a maintenance door most people probably walked past 100 times without noticing. Martinez had the code. Sarah didn't ask how. And within seconds they were descending a narrow concrete stairwell that smelled like rust and old water. Martinez was moving on adrenaline now, his face drawn and pale, but his steps were steady. Sarah stayed close behind him, one hand on his shoulder to keep him balanced, the other gripping the scalpel. Where does this lead? She asked. Loading docks on the north side. From there, we can get to the street. And then what? Then we find somewhere to hole up until I can get this drive to someone I trust. Who? Martinez didn't answer. They reached the bottom of the stairs and pushed through another door into a long tunnel lined with exposed pipes and electrical cables. Emergency lights cast everything in a sickly yellow glow. Water dripped from somewhere overhead, echoing in the confined space. Sarah's pulse was racing. How do you know they won't cover the loading docks? I don't. But staying upstairs is guaranteed suicide, and down here we've got options. They moved quickly through the tunnel, their footsteps muffled by the hum of machinery. Sarah kept glancing over her shoulder, expecting to see armed men pouring through the door behind them. But the tunnel stayed empty. Martinez stopped suddenly, holding up a hand. Sarah froze. What is it? She whispered. He pointed ahead, where the tunnel branched in 2 directions. Left goes to the loading docks, right goes to the old morgue. Why would we go to the morgue? Because it's got a vehicle bay that connects to an underground parking structure most people don't know exists. Martinez leaned against the wall, breathing hard. Built back in the 60s when they used to transport bodies off-site for autopsies. You think we can get a vehicle? I think it's our best shot. They turned right. The tunnel narrowed, the ceiling dropping low enough that Sarah had to duck beneath a bundle of cables. The air grew colder, stale, like no one had been down here in years. Then Sarah's phone buzzed. She pulled it out, her heart sinking when she saw the caller ID. Unknown number. She didn't want to answer, but she knew she had to. Hello? Silence. Then a voice she hadn't heard in 3 years. Hello, Sarah. Her blood turned to ice. Dad? Martinez's head snapped around, his eyes wide. I'm sorry it has to be this way. Richard Brennan said. His voice was exactly as she remembered, calm, measured, the voice of a man who never raised his tone because he never needed to. I didn't want you involved. Sarah stopped walking, her back pressed against the damp concrete wall. You're dead. Clearly not. Why? Her voice cracked. Why would you do this to me? To protect you. He paused. I knew they'd come after everyone I cared about once the investigation started closing in. Faking my death was the only way to keep you safe. Safe? Sarah's hand shook. I mourned you. I buried you. I know, and I'm sorry, but it was necessary. Necessary for what? To betray your country? To get people killed? To survive, Richard said quietly. The people I work for don't tolerate failure. If I'd stayed dead to them, they would have killed you to send a message. So instead you killed soldiers. I provided information. What happened to those soldiers was a consequence of decisions made far above my pay grade. Sarah's vision blurred. That's not an excuse. It's not meant to be. Richard's voice hardened. I'm calling because I need you to walk away from Martinez right now, before this gets worse. I can't do that. Yes, you can. Tell Lawson the patient's unstable. Tell him you're compromised. Tell him whatever you need to say, but get out of that hospital. Or what? Or I can't protect you anymore. Sarah's breath caught. Is that a threat? It's a warning. Richard paused. I've kept you off the target list this long, but if you keep helping Martinez, I won't be able to stop what's coming. Martinez was staring at her now, his expression unreadable. Sarah met his eyes. Then she spoke into the phone. You made your choice. I'm making mine. She hung up. For a moment, neither of them moved. Then Martinez said, He's going to come after you now. I know. You sure about this? Sarah slipped the phone back into her pocket. No, but I'm doing it anyway. Martinez's mouth twitched into something that might have been a smile. You're tougher than you look. Yeah, well, I had a good teacher. They kept moving. The tunnel opened into a wider space that smelled like disinfectant and formaldehyde. Old gurneys lined the walls, their metal frames rusted and forgotten. At the far end, a pair of heavy steel doors marked the entrance to the vehicle bay. Martinez pushed through first, Sarah right behind him. The bay was dark except for a single overhead light that buzzed and flickered. 3 vehicles sat in a row, an old ambulance, a maintenance van, and a black sedan that looked like it hadn't been driven in months. Keys are usually kept in the lockbox, Martinez said, pointing to a metal cabinet on the wall. Sarah moved toward it, but stopped when she heard footsteps echoing from somewhere behind them. Multiple sets, moving fast. They found us, she whispered. Martinez grabbed her arm. Get the keys, now! Sarah sprinted to the lockbox, yanked it open, and grabbed the first set of keys she saw. The sedan. She tossed them to Martinez, who was already moving toward the driver's side door. The footsteps were getting closer. Sarah ran to the passenger side and threw the door open just as the first man appeared in the tunnel entrance. Tall, armed, wearing a tactical vest under his jacket. He raised his weapon. Martinez turned the ignition. The engine coughed, sputtered, and died. Come on, Martinez hissed, trying again. The man in the tunnel shouted something Sarah couldn't hear over the pounding in her ears. The engine roared to life. Martinez slammed the car into drive and floored it. The sedan lurched forward, tires screeching on the concrete as bullets sparked off the rear bumper. Sarah ducked low, her hands braced against the dashboard as Martinez sent the car barreling toward the exit ramp at the far end of the bay. The ramp was steep, narrow, and barely wide enough for the sedan. Martinez didn't slow down. They shot up the incline, the undercarriage scraping against the concrete, and burst through a chain-link gate that exploded outward in a shower of metal and sparks. Then they were outside. The night air hit Sarah's face like a slap. Martinez swerved hard to the left, narrowly missing a parked truck, and accelerated down the alley behind the hospital. Sarah twisted in her seat, looking back. 2 of the SUVs from the parking lot were already in pursuit, their headlights cutting through the darkness like searchlights. They're following us, she said. Yeah, I noticed. Martinez took a sharp right turn, the sedan's tires screaming in protest. They careened onto a side street past darkened storefronts and closed gas stations, the speedometer climbing past 60. Sarah gripped the door handle. Do you even know where you're going? Not really. That's not reassuring. You want reassuring, call a therapist. Martinez glanced in the rearview mirror. Right now, I'm just trying to keep us alive. One of the SUVs pulled alongside them, its passenger window rolling down. Sarah saw the gun before Martinez did. Get down, she screamed. The window exploded inward, glass spraying across the cabin. Martinez jerked the wheel hard to the right, slamming the sedan into the side of the SUV with a metallic crunch. The SUV swerved, clipped a parked car, and spun out. But the second SUV was still coming. Martinez took another turn, this time onto a narrow residential street lined with trees. The sedan was faster on the straightaway, and for a moment Sarah thought they might actually lose them. Then Martinez's hand slipped on the wheel. The car lurched. Sarah looked over and saw blood soaking through the bandages on his chest. "You're bleeding," she said. "I'm fine." "You're not fine. I said I'm fine." But his voice was weaker now, and his grip on the wheel was shaking. The sedan drifted across the center line. Martinez corrected, but too slowly. Sarah saw the intersection ahead, saw the red light, saw the truck barreling through from the cross street. "Look out!" she shouted. Martinez hit the brakes. Too late. The truck's horn blared. Everything went white. Das day. Sarah woke up to the smell of gasoline and burning rubber. Her head was ringing. Her vision was blurred. She tried to move, and pain shot through her ribs like a knife. The sedan had spun out and come to rest on the sidewalk. Its front end crumpled against a fire hydrant. Water sprayed into the air, catching the light from a nearby street lamp. Martinez was slumped over the steering wheel, unconscious. "No," Sarah breathed. She reached over, shook his shoulder. "Martinez, wake up." Nothing. She checked his pulse. Faint, irregular. But there. Sarah forced the passenger door open and stumbled out onto the pavement. Her legs barely held her weight. She circled around to the driver's side, yanked the door open, and pulled Martinez out as gently as she could manage. He groaned, his eyes fluttering. "Stay with me," Sarah said. "We're not done yet." Behind them, headlights appeared through the spray of water. The second SUV had caught up. Sarah's hand went to her pocket, searching for the scalpel. Gone. Lost in the crash. The SUV's doors opened. 4 men stepped out. Sarah positioned herself between them and Martinez, her hands raised, her heart pounding so hard she thought it might burst. One of the men stepped forward. Not a mercenary. Not a stranger. Colonel Marcus Hale, her father's former commanding officer, the man who'd delivered the eulogy at the funeral. "Hello, Sarah," Hale said calmly. Then he pulled a gun. Sarah didn't move. The gun in Hale's hand was steady, aimed directly at her chest. The 3 men behind him fanned out in a practiced formation, their weapons raised but not yet targeting, professional, controlled, waiting for orders. "Step away from Martinez," Hale said. Sarah stayed where she was, her body blocking Martinez from view. "No." Hale's expression didn't change. "I'm not asking." "Neither am I." Behind her, Martinez stirred, groaning. Sarah could feel him trying to push himself up, his hand gripping the back of her scrub pants for leverage. "Stay down," she whispered, without turning. "Can't," Martinez rasped. "Not done yet." Hale took a step closer, his shoes crunching on broken glass. "Sarah, I don't want to hurt you. Your father asked me to bring you in safely." "My father's dead." "We both know that's not true." Hale's voice was patient, almost kind. "Richard made mistakes. He got in over his head, but he's trying to fix this, trying to protect you." "By sending armed men to hunt us down?" "By sending me." Hale lowered the gun slightly, just enough to seem less threatening. "I've known you since you were 12 years old. I taught you how to shoot, how to read a map. I was at your graduation from nursing school." Sarah's jaw tightened. "And you lied at his funeral." "I did what I was ordered to do, same as you did when you were in the service." Hale's eyes hardened. "You know how this works. You follow orders, you trust the chain of command. You don't ask questions that'll get you killed." "Those orders got Martinez's team massacred. Those orders kept this country safe from threats you don't even know exist." Hale raised the gun again. "Last chance. Step aside." Sarah's hands were shaking, but she didn't move. You'll have to shoot me first. For a moment, Hale just stared at her. Then he shifted his aim. Not at Sarah, at Martinez. Then I'll shoot him, Hale said, and you can watch. Sarah's breath caught. Martinez's grip on her pants tightened. Don't, he whispered. Not worth it. But Sarah wasn't listening. Her mind was racing, calculating angles and distances and probabilities. 4 armed men, 1 gun among them aimed and ready. Martinez barely conscious. No cover except the wrecked sedan and a spray of water from the broken hydrant. She couldn't win this. Not by fighting. But maybe she didn't have to fight. The drive, Sarah said suddenly. You want the drive Martinez is carrying? Hale's eyes narrowed. What about it? Let us go, and I'll tell you where it is. Martinez went rigid behind her. Sarah, shut up, she hissed. Hale studied her for a long moment. You're bluffing. Am I? Sarah took a slow step forward, hands still raised. Martinez told me everything, about Iron Wolf, about the leaks, about the missions that were compromised. That drive has evidence linking my father and his entire network to the deaths of American soldiers. If you knew where it was, you'd have given it to Lawson already. Lawson doesn't know I have it. Martinez didn't trust him. Sarah took another step. But I know you. You were my father's friend, his commanding officer. If he trusted you with his fake death, he trusts you with his life. Hale's expression shifted slightly. Not much. Just enough to tell Sarah she'd hit something true. Where is it? Hale asked. Let us walk away first. Not happening. Then shoot me. Sarah stopped moving, her eyes locked on his. But if you do, you'll never find it. Martinez encrypted the files. I'm the only one who knows the password. It was a complete lie. Sarah had no idea if the files were encrypted, had no idea if Martinez had even told her the truth about what was on the drive. But Hale didn't know that, and from the way his jaw tightened, she could see him weighing his options. Behind him, one of the other men shifted his stance. Colonel, we don't have time for this. Lawson's team will be here any minute. Hale ignored him. You're lying. Maybe, Sarah said. But can you afford to take that chance? Hale's finger moved toward the trigger. Sarah's heart hammered. Then headlights appeared at the end of the street, followed by the sound of engines. Multiple vehicles. Moving fast. Hale swore under his breath and gestured to his men. Load them in the SUV. Now. 2 of the men moved towards Sarah and Martinez. Sarah backed up, her mind racing. This was worse. Being taken meant being disappeared, interrogated, killed somewhere no one would ever find the bodies. The first man reached for her arm. Sarah drove her elbow into his throat. He staggered back, choking, and Sarah grabbed for his weapon. Her fingers closed around the grip just as the second man tackled her from behind, slamming her into the pavement. The gun skittered away. Sarah's vision blurred. Pain exploded across her shoulders and ribs. She tried to twist free, but the man was too heavy, his weight pinning her down. Then Martinez moved. Despite the blood loss, despite the injuries, despite everything, he lunged forward and grabbed the loose weapon from the ground. His hands were shaking, his aim unsteady, but he pointed it directly at Hale. Back off, Martinez said. Hale raised his own weapon. Put it down, soldier. Not a chance. The standoff lasted 3 seconds. Then the approaching vehicles rounded the corner, their headlights flooding the street. Military Humvees, 4 of them. Lawson's voice crackled over a loudspeaker. Drop your weapons, now! Hale's men hesitated, looking to their commander. Hale's expression was stone. This isn't over. Yeah, Martinez said. It is. Hale lowered his weapon slowly, his eyes never leaving Sarah's face. Your father's going to be very disappointed. Then he and his men backed toward their SUV, climbed in, and drove away before Lawson's team could block the street. Sarah lay on the pavement, gasping for air, her whole body trembling. Martinez collapsed beside her, the weapon falling from his hands. Lawson was there seconds later, barking orders to his team. Medics appeared, checking vitals, applying pressure to Martinez's wounds. Someone wrapped a thermal blanket around Sarah's shoulders. You 2 are idiots, Lawson said, crouching beside them. You know that? Sarah laughed. It came out half sob, half hysteria. Yeah, she managed. We know. They were back at the hospital within the hour. Not Ridgewood Memorial. A different facility, smaller and more secure, located on the outskirts of Ashford near the regional airport. The kind of place that didn't appear on public records and didn't ask questions about patients who arrived under military escort. Sarah sat in a private exam room while a doctor stitched a gash above her eyebrow and checked her ribs for fractures. Nothing broken, just bruised. She'd been lucky. Martinez was in surgery. The crash had reopened internal injuries that had barely been holding together. The doctor said he'd lost too much blood, that his chances weren't good, that the next 6 hours would determine whether he made it. Sarah waited. Lawson found her 2 hours later, sitting in the hallway outside the surgical wing with a cup of cold coffee she hadn't touched. "He's out of surgery," Lawson said. "Stable, for now." Sarah exhaled slowly. "Can I see him?" "Not yet. He's in recovery." Lawson sat down beside her. "We need to talk." "About what?" "About everything you didn't tell me." Lawson's voice was calm, but there was an edge to it. "Martinez gave you information, names, evidence, and you kept it from me." Sarah met his eyes. "He didn't trust you." "And you did?" "I didn't have a choice." Lawson leaned back against the wall. "Hale got away. So did his team. We ran the plates on the SUV, stolen, no trace. They're ghosts." "They're professionals," Sarah said. "They've been doing this for years. Which is why I need to know everything Martinez told you. Right now." Sarah hesitated. She still didn't know if she could trust Lawson. Didn't know if he was part of the network or just another soldier following orders. But Martinez was unconscious, and the flash drive was still hidden under his hospital gown, tucked against his skin where no one had thought to look. If Sarah didn't act now, it might disappear. "Iron Wolf," she said quietly. "That's the call sign for the person leaking intelligence. Martinez has evidence on a flash drive, bank records, communications, everything." Lawson's expression didn't change. "Where's the drive?" "Somewhere safe." "That's not an answer." "It's the only answer you're getting until I know you're clean." Lawson's jaw tightened. "You think I'm involved?" "I think someone in your chain of command is, and until I know who, I'm not handing over the only leverage we have." For a moment, Lawson said nothing. Then he pulled out his phone and made a call. "This is Lawson. I need a secure line to General Kincaid." "Yes, I know what time it is. Wake him up." He waited. Sarah watched him, her pulse quickening. General Marcus Kincaid was the commanding officer of Joint Special Operations Command, one of the highest-ranking military officials in the country. If Lawson was calling him directly, either he was trying to go over the heads of whoever was compromised, or he was setting Sarah up. Lawson's phone clicked. "General, this is Major Lawson. I'm in Ashford with the Martinez situation. We've recovered the asset, but we have a complication." A pause. "Yes, sir, the nurse is here. She claims Martinez has physical evidence implicating a senior officer at Fort Bragg in espionage and treason." Another pause. Lawson's eyes flicked to Sarah. "Understood, sir. I'll secure the evidence and wait for your team." He hung up. "General Kincaid is sending a joint task force extraction team," Lawson said. "They'll be here in 3 hours. You'll hand over the drive to them, and they'll take Martinez into protective custody." Sarah's stomach twisted. "And me?" "You'll be debriefed, cleared, and released." "Just like that?" "Just like that." Lawson stood. "Unless you're still planning to hold on to evidence in a federal investigation, in which case you'll be arrested for obstruction." Sarah stared at him. She didn't have a choice. Not really. "Fine," she said. "But I want to be there when Martinez wakes up. I want to hear him confirm this is what he wants." Lawson nodded. "Fair enough." He walked away, leaving Sarah alone in the hallway. She sat there for another 10 minutes, trying to slow her breathing, trying to think. Then her phone buzzed. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer, but something made her thumb slide across the screen. "Hello?" "You're making this harder than it needs to be," her father's voice. Sarah's hand tightened around the phone. "Where are you?" "Close enough to watch you, far enough to stay safe." Richard's voice was calm. "Hale told me what happened. You protected Martinez. That was brave. Stupid, but brave. He's a soldier who got betrayed by his own people. He's a soldier who stuck his nose where it didn't belong, and now he's going to get you killed. You mean like you killed his team? Silence. Then Richard spoke again, his voice colder. I didn't kill anyone. I provided intelligence to people who paid me for it. What they did with that intelligence isn't my responsibility. You sold out American soldiers. I sold information to the highest bidder. That's how the world works, Sarah. You just don't want to admit it. Sarah stood, her legs shaking. I'm done talking to you. No, you're not. Because I'm about to give you a choice. Richard paused. In 2 hours, a team of military investigators is going to arrive at that hospital. They're going to take Martinez into custody. And 48 hours later, he's going to die in a tragic medical complication. Sarah's blood ran cold. You can't. I can. And I will, unless you give me the flash drive first. I don't have it. Yes, you do. Martinez trusts you. He told you where it is. He probably gave it to you for safekeeping. Richard's voice softened. I know you think you're doing the right thing, but you're not. You're just delaying the inevitable. Give me the drive, walk away, and I'll make sure you're left alone. You can go back to your life, forget any of this happened. And Martinez? Martinez is already dead. He just doesn't know it yet. Sarah's hands were shaking so hard she almost dropped the phone. What if I say no? Then you die with him. Richard paused. I don't want that, but I won't hesitate if you force my hand. The line went dead. Sarah stood in the empty hallway, staring at the phone, her mind racing. Her father was right about one thing. She did have the flash drive. While Martinez was in surgery, while the doctors were cutting away his bandages and cleaning his wounds, Sarah had slipped into the recovery prep room and taken it from around his neck. It was in her pocket right now. A small piece of plastic and metal that contained enough evidence to destroy her father and everyone he worked with. All she had to do was hand it over to Lawson, or hide it, or destroy it. Sarah walked back toward the recovery wing, her footsteps echoing in the quiet corridor. A nurse passed her, nodded politely, kept walking. Through a window, Sarah could see the dark expanse of the parking lot, the runway lights from the airport beyond. She reached Martinez's room and pushed the door open. He was awake. Barely. His eyes were half closed, his face pale and drawn. An oxygen mask covered his nose and mouth. IV lines ran into both arms. Monitors beeped steadily beside the bed. But he was alive. Hey, Sarah said quietly. Martinez's eyes shifted toward her. He tried to speak, but the mask muffled his words. Sarah moved to his bedside and carefully lifted the mask away from his face. Don't talk, just listen. He nodded weakly. My father called, Sarah said. He knows about the drive. He's threatening to kill you if I don't give it to him. Martinez's eyes sharpened. Lawson called in a task force, Sarah continued. They'll be here in less than 3 hours. But I don't know if I can trust them. I don't know who's compromised and who isn't. Martinez's hand moved, his fingers brushing against hers. I need you to tell me what to do, Sarah said, because I can't make this decision on my own. Martinez pulled the oxygen mask down further, his voice a hoarse whisper. Give it to Kincaid. Lawson said, not Lawson. Kincaid. Martinez coughed, his whole body shaking. General Marcus Kincaid, JSOC commander. He's clean. I verified it before the mission. How do you know? Because he's the one who authorized the investigation into Iron Wolf. He's the one who sent my team. Martinez's grip tightened. If anyone can take down your father, it's him. Sarah's throat tightened. And if you're wrong, then we're both dead anyway. The words hung in the air between them. Sarah pulled the flash drive from her pocket and held it up. This thing better be worth it. Martinez's mouth twitched into something that might have been a smile. It is. Sarah slipped the drive back into her pocket and replaced the oxygen mask over Martinez's face. Rest. I'll handle this. She turned to leave. Sarah. She stopped. Martinez's eyes were on her, intense despite the exhaustion. Thank you. Sarah nodded. Then she walked out before the tears could start. General Marcus Kincaid arrived 2 hours and 40 minutes later. He came in a Black Hawk helicopter that landed directly on the hospital's rooftop helipad, flanked by 6 special operators in full tactical gear. No ceremony, no announcements, just boots on the ground and weapons ready. Lawson met him in the lobby, saluted, and led him directly to the secure conference room where Sarah was waiting. Kincaid was in his late 50s, with steel gray hair, a square jaw, and eyes that had seen too many wars. He wore a field uniform with no adornment, except his rank insignia and a single combat patch on his shoulder. He sat down across from Sarah without preamble. "Miss Brennan," he said, "I understand you have something for me." Sarah studied him for a moment. She'd spent 6 years in the military. She knew how to read officers, how to spot the ones who cared about their people and the ones who only cared about their careers. Kincaid's eyes were tired, angry, haunted, the eyes of someone who'd lost soldiers and wanted answers. Sarah pulled the flash drive from her pocket and set it on the table. "Martinez said you're clean," she said. "I hope he's right." Kincaid picked up the drive, turning it over in his hand. "So do I." He plugged it into a laptop one of his operators had set up on the table. The screen flickered to life, displaying rows of encrypted files. "Password?" Kincaid asked. Sarah shook her head. "Martinez didn't tell me." Kincaid's jaw tightened. "Then we'll need him awake." "He's in no condition. I don't care what condition he's in. We need that data." Kincaid stood. "Take me to him." They moved through the hallway in a tight formation. Kincaid in the lead, Sarah beside him, Lawson and 2 operators covering their 6. The hospital felt smaller with them inside it, the walls closing in. Martinez's room was at the end of the corridor. Kincaid pushed the door open. The bed was empty. Sarah's heart stopped. "Where is he?" Kincaid demanded. The nurse stationed outside the room stepped forward, her face pale. "He was here 10 minutes ago. I just checked." "Find him," Kincaid snapped. "Lock down the building. No one in or out." The operators scattered. Sarah stood frozen, staring at the empty bed. The IV lines had been torn out. The monitors were still beeping, but the leads were disconnected. Martinez had left on his own, or someone had taken him. Lawson grabbed Sarah's arm. "Did you tell anyone he was here?" "No." "Did you contact anyone outside this facility?" "Just my father," Sarah said, "but he already knew." Lawson swore and pulled out his radio. "All units, we have a missing patient. I repeat, missing patient. Possible hostile extraction in progress." Kincaid moved to the window and looked out at the parking lot. Then his expression changed. "There," he said. Sarah followed his gaze. A black SUV was pulling away from the loading dock, moving fast. "That's Hale's vehicle," Sarah said. Kincaid turned to his operators. "Intercept. Non-lethal if possible. But do not let that vehicle leave the perimeter." The operators sprinted from the room. Kincaid looked at Sarah. "If Martinez is in that SUV, he's as good as dead. Then we stop them." "We?" Kincaid's eyes narrowed. "You're a civilian." "I'm the person who kept him alive this long." Sarah moved toward the door. "And I'm not stopping now." Kincaid didn't argue. They ran. The hallway blurred past. Sarah's ribs screamed in protest, but she ignored the pain. They hit the stairwell and descended 3 floors in seconds, bursting out into the loading dock just as the SUV accelerated toward the exit gate. One of Kincaid's operators fired a spike strip across the driveway. The SUV swerved, narrowly missing it. Then a second SUV appeared from the opposite direction, boxing them in. The first SUV skidded to a stop. Doors flew open. Hale stepped out, hands raised. "Stand down. This is a lawful military operation." Kincaid's voice was ice. "By whose authority?" "General Thomas Riker, Fort Bragg Command." Hale pulled out a document and held it up. "I have orders to detain Martinez for questioning regarding a classified breach." "Riker doesn't have jurisdiction over JSOC operations," Kincaid said. "He does when those operations compromise national security." Kincaid stepped forward. "Open the vehicle." "I can't do that." "That wasn't a request." Hale's hand moved toward his sidearm. Every operator in Kincaid's team raised their weapons. The air went electric. Sarah's pulse hammered. Then the back door of the SUV opened from the inside. Martinez stumbled out. He was barely standing, his hospital gown soaked with blood, his face gray, but he was holding something, a phone, with the screen facing outward. "It's live," Martinez said, his voice weak but clear. "Everything you just said. Everything Hale just admitted. It's streaming directly to a secure DoD server." Hale's face went white. Martinez looked at Kincaid. "Password is Emerald Crossing 2019. All one phrase. Capital E, capital C." Then his legs gave out. Sarah caught him before he hit the ground, lowering him gently onto the pavement. "Medic!" she shouted, but Martinez was already unconscious. Kincaid's operators moved in, surrounding Hale and his men. "Colonel Marcus Hale," Kincaid said, his voice cold and formal. "You're under arrest for conspiracy, treason, and the murder of American soldiers. You have the right to remain silent." Hale didn't resist. He just stared at Sarah, his expression unreadable. "Your father's next," he said quietly. Then they dragged him away. The sun was rising by the time the chaos settled. Martinez was back in surgery, fighting for his life for the second time in 12 hours. The doctor said his chances were worse now, that he'd lost too much blood, that his body was shutting down. But Sarah had heard that before, and he'd survived before. Kincaid found her in the waiting room, sitting alone with a cup of coffee that had gone cold an hour ago. "We accessed the files," he said. "You were right. It's all there. Bank transfers, communications, operational coordinates for 6 compromised missions spanning 3 years. "Iron Wolf?" Sarah asked. Kincaid nodded. "Colonel Richard Brennan, your father, along with 4 other officers at Fort Bragg and 2 contractors working with Russian intelligence services." Sarah closed her eyes. She'd known, but hearing it confirmed still felt like a punch to the chest. "We've issued warrants," Kincaid continued. "Federal agents are moving on all targets simultaneously. By noon, everyone involved will be in custody." "Including my father?" "If we can find him." Kincaid sat down beside her. "He went dark 6 hours ago. No communications, no movement. He knows we're coming." Sarah opened her eyes. "He'll run." "Probably, but we'll find him eventually." Kincaid paused. "For what it's worth, I'm sorry. I know this can't be easy." "He made his choice," Sarah said quietly. "A long time ago." Kincaid stood. "Martinez is asking for you." Sarah's head snapped up. "He's awake?" "Barely, but he won't let the doctor sedate him until he talks to you." Sarah was moving before Kincaid finished speaking. Martinez looked worse than before. Worse than after the crash. Worse than after the firefight. He looked like a man who'd used up every last reserve of strength and was running on nothing but stubborn refusal to quit. But his eyes were open, and when Sarah walked in, he smiled. "You're supposed to be resting," Sarah said. "I'll rest when I'm dead." His voice was so hoarse she could barely hear it. "Kincaid told me they got Hale, got the files. They're moving on everyone involved." "Good." Martinez paused. "Your father?" "Still out there." Martinez's jaw tightened. "He'll come after you." "I know." "Then you need to disappear. New identity. New city. Kincaid can arrange it." Sarah shook her head. "I'm not running." "Sarah, I said I'm not running." She moved to his bedside. "You didn't run when your team got hit. You didn't run when they tried to kill you in this hospital. I'm not running from my father." Martinez stared at her for a long moment. Then he nodded. "Okay? Okay? Yeah, okay." He closed his eyes. "Just promise me something." "What?" "When they find him, don't be there. Let the law handle it." Sarah didn't answer, because they both knew she couldn't promise that. A nurse appeared in the doorway. "I'm sorry, but he needs to rest now." Sarah nodded and turned to leave. "Sarah." She stopped. Martinez's eyes were still closed, but his hand was extended toward her. She took it. "You saved my life," he said quietly. "More than once. I won't forget that. You saved mine too." "Yeah, well," his mouth twitched. "Guess we're even." Sarah squeezed his hand once, then let go. She walked out of the room. Lawson was waiting in the hallway. "Kincaid wants to see you," he said. "Conference room. Now." Sarah followed him through the corridor, her mind still on Martinez, still on her father, still on everything that had happened in the last 48 hours. The conference room was filled with people now. Officers, agents, analysts. all of them focused on the laptop screen at the center of the table. Kincaid looked up as Sarah entered. "We've got a hit on your father's location." Sarah's breath caught. "Where?" "Tracking his phone to a location in the mountains about 60 miles north of here. Remote cabin, off the grid." Kincaid paused. "We're sending a tactical team to apprehend him. ETA, 30 minutes. I want to go." "Absolutely not. He's my father, which is exactly why you can't be there." Kincaid's voice was firm. "You're too close to this. Too compromised. If something goes wrong, he'll kill your team." Sarah stepped closer. "I know him. I know how he thinks. I can help." Kincaid stared at her. Then he looked at Lawson. "Your call." Lawson's expression was unreadable. She's been right about everything so far. Kincaid exhaled slowly. "Fine. But you stay in the vehicle. You don't engage, you don't interfere. Clear?" "Clear." It was another lie. But Kincaid didn't need to know that. They flew north in 2 Blackhawks, low and fast over the Wyoming wilderness. Sarah sat in the second chopper, wedged between 2 operators who didn't speak and didn't look at her. Lawson was across from her, checking his weapon for the 3rd time. Through the open door, Sarah could see mountains rising in the distance, their peaks covered in snow despite the late spring weather. The cabin was hidden in a valley between 2 ridges, accessible only by a single dirt road that wound through dense forest. Perfect for hiding. Perfect for an ambush. The helicopters touched down half a mile from the target, dropping the team into a clearing surrounded by pine trees. The operators moved out immediately, spreading into formation, weapons raised. Sarah stayed with Lawson and Kincaid near the tree line. "Thermal shows 1 heat signature inside the cabin," one of the operators reported over the radio. "No movement." "Could be a trap," Lawson said. "Could be," Kincaid agreed. "But we're going in anyway. Alpha team, approach from the north. Bravo, take the south. I want eyes on all exits before we breach." The teams moved. Sarah watched through binoculars as they closed in on the cabin, their movements synchronized and precise. Within 2 minutes, they were in position. "Alpha in position. Bravo in position. Breach on my mark," Kincaid said. 3, 2, 1. Execute. The front door exploded inward. Operators flooded through, shouting commands. Then silence. Too much silence. "Alpha Leader, report," Kincaid said into his radio. Static. "Alpha Leader, do you copy?" More static. Then a voice crackled through, not one of the operators, Sarah's father. "Hello, Marcus?" Kincaid's jaw tightened. "Brennan." "I assume my daughter is with you," Richard said calmly. "Tell her I'm sorry it had to end this way." Sarah grabbed the radio from Kincaid's hand. "Dad, stop this. You can still walk out of there." "No, I can't." Richard's voice was sad. "The moment Hale got arrested, I became a liability. They won't let me live long enough to talk." "Who's they?" "The people who actually run things. The ones who make sure people like me disappear when we become inconvenient." Richard paused. "I tried to protect you, Sarah. I really did." "Then surrender. Help us take them down." "It's too late for that." An explosion ripped through the cabin. The shockwave knocked Sarah off her feet, throwing her back against a tree. Her ears rang, her vision blurred. When she looked up, the cabin was engulfed in flames. Operators were pulling back, dragging wounded teammates, shouting into radios. Kincaid was on his feet, barking orders. Sarah just stared at the fire. Her father was dead. Really dead this time. Lawson helped her up, his hand on her shoulder. "I'm sorry." Sarah didn't answer. She just watched the cabin burn. Then her phone buzzed. Text message. Unknown number. She opened it. "I'm sorry, Sarah, but this isn't over. The people I worked for won't stop until everyone who knows their names is dead. That includes you. That includes Martinez. Run. Disappear. It's the only way you survive. I love you. I always did." Below the message was an attachment. A file. Sarah opened it. It was a list of names. Government officials, military officers, corporate executives, intelligence operatives, dozens of them, all connected to the network her father had been part of. And at the top of the list, highlighted in red, was a single name. General Thomas Riker, Fort Bragg Command, the man who'd given Hale his orders. Sarah's blood ran cold. Lawson was looking over her shoulder. "What is that?" Sarah closed the phone. "Nothing." But her mind was racing. The flash drive Martinez had recovered contained evidence against her father and his immediate accomplices. But this list was bigger, deeper. And if Riker was involved, then Kincaid's entire operation was compromised. Sarah looked back at the burning cabin. Her father hadn't killed himself to avoid arrest. He'd killed himself to send her a message. The war wasn't over, it was just beginning, and the enemy was already inside the command structure. Sarah didn't tell Lawson about the list. She didn't tell Kincaid either. She just stood there in the clearing, watching the cabin burn, while her phone felt like a live grenade in her pocket. The smoke rose into the gray morning sky, thick and black, carrying away whatever was left of Richard Brennan. Her father. The traitor. The man who'd just handed her a weapon she didn't know how to use. "We need to sweep the perimeter," Kincaid was saying to his team. "Check for secondary devices. I want a full forensic workup on whatever's left of that structure." Lawson touched Sarah's shoulder. "You should head back. There's nothing more you can do here." Sarah nodded without speaking. They loaded her into one of the Blackhawks 20 minutes later, along with 3 wounded operators and a medic who kept checking their vitals with mechanical efficiency. The helicopter lifted off, banking hard to the south, and Sarah watched the smoking ruin disappear behind the trees. Her father was gone, but his war was still very much alive. The flight back to the secure hospital took 40 minutes. Sarah spent every second of it staring at her phone, rereading the message, studying the names on the list. Some she recognized from her time in the service. Others were completely unfamiliar. But General Thomas Riker's name sat at the top like a cancer, highlighted and underlined. If Riker was dirty, then everyone under his command was suspect, including the people who'd arrested Hale, including the team securing Martinez, including Kincaid himself. Sarah's hands started shaking again. The helicopter touched down on the hospital roof just after 8 in the morning. Sarah climbed out, thanked the pilot out of habit, and headed for the stairwell. Her ribs ached, her head throbbed. She needed sleep. But first she needed to talk to Martinez. Martinez was awake when she entered his room. Barely. His eyes were half open, his face the color of old paper, but he tracked her movement as she crossed to his bedside. "You look like hell," he rasped. "Yeah, well, you're not winning any beauty contests either." His mouth twitched. "Fair." Sarah pulled the chair close and sat. "My father's dead." Martinez's expression didn't change. "I heard. Kincaid briefed me an hour ago. He sent me something before he died." Sarah pulled out her phone, hesitated, then showed him the screen. "A list." Martinez's eyes focused on the names, scanning quickly despite the exhaustion. When he reached Riker's name, he went very still. "Where did he get this?" Martinez asked. "I don't know, but he said the people on that list won't stop until everyone who knows about them is dead. That includes us." Martinez closed his eyes. "Riker was Hale's commanding officer, the one who authorized Hale to detain me." "I know, which means Kincaid's entire operation could be compromised." "I know that too." Martinez opened his eyes again. "So what are you going to do?" Sarah looked at him. "I was hoping you'd tell me." "I can't." Martinez's voice was weak but steady. "I'm stuck in this bed. I can barely move. Whatever happens next, you're on your own." "That's not helpful." "It's honest." Martinez paused. "But if I had to guess, I'd say your father gave you that list for a reason. He wanted you to finish what he couldn't. He wanted me to run. He told you to run. But he gave you ammunition. That's not the same thing." Sarah's jaw tightened. "So I'm supposed to what? Go after a 2-star general with nothing but a text message and a death wish?" "No, you're supposed to be smart about it." Martinez shifted slightly, grimacing. "Riker's protected. He's got resources, connections, layers of security. You can't just walk into his office and accuse him of treason." "Then what do I do?" "You find someone he can't touch. Someone outside his chain of command. Someone with enough authority to bring him down without getting killed in the process." Sarah thought about that. "Who?" "I don't know, but your father did. Otherwise, he wouldn't have sent you that list." Sarah looked down at the phone again, scrolling through the names. Most were military or intelligence. A few were civilian contractors. One was a senator. Another was a deputy director at the CIA. Then she saw it. Near the bottom of the list, marked with an asterisk, Colonel Janet Okoye, Defense Intelligence Agency. Clean. Sarah's breath caught. What? Martinez asked. There's a name here marked as clean. Colonel Janet Okoye. Martinez's eyes sharpened. DIA? Yeah. Your father's telling you who to trust. Sarah stared at the name. Or it's a trap. Could be. But if he wanted you dead, he would have just let Hale kill you back at the hospital. Martinez paused. I think he was trying to make things right, in his own twisted way. Sarah didn't know if that made her feel better or worse. A nurse appeared in the doorway, looking apologetic. I'm sorry, but visiting hours are over. He needs to rest. Sarah stood. I'll come back. Martinez caught her wrist, his grip weak but insistent. Be careful. If Riker knows you have that list, he'll come after you with everything he's got. I know. I'm serious, Sarah. These people don't play by rules. They don't do trials or due process. They just make problems disappear. I'll be careful. Martinez let go. Good. Because I didn't survive all this just to have you get yourself killed. Sarah managed a small smile. I'll do my best. She walked out before the emotion in her chest could turn into something visible. Colonel Janet Okoye's office was located in a nondescript building in Washington, D.C., 3 blocks from the Pentagon. Sarah had never been there, had never heard of Okoye before reading her father's list, but a quick search revealed that Okoye was a decorated intelligence officer with 20 years of service, specializing in counterintelligence and internal investigations. Exactly the kind of person who might be able to take down someone like Riker. Sarah caught a military transport flight out of Wyoming at noon, hitching a ride with a supply convoy heading east. No one asked questions, no one cared. She was just another face in uniform, tired and quiet, easy to ignore. She arrived in D.C. just after dark. The city felt different than she remembered, colder, more hostile. Or maybe that was just her. She took a cab to a cheap motel near Union Station, checked in under a fake name, and spent 2 hours staring at the ceiling, trying to figure out what she was going to say to a woman she'd never met. Hi, my father was a traitor who just died in a fiery explosion. But before that, he sent me a list of other traitors, including a 2-star general, and I need your help bringing them all down. Yeah, that would go over great. Sarah didn't sleep. At 6 in the morning, she showered, changed into the cleanest clothes she had, and caught another cab to Okoye's building. The lobby was quiet, sterile, filled with the kind of security you'd expect from a defense intelligence facility. Sarah gave her name at the front desk, her real name, and said she needed to speak with Colonel Okoye about an urgent matter. The receptionist looked skeptical. Do you have an appointment? No, but she'll want to hear what I have to say. I'm sure she will, but without an appointment, tell her it's about General Thomas Riker. The receptionist's expression shifted slightly. Wait here. Sarah waited. 20 minutes passed. Then a woman appeared from the elevator bay, mid-40s, black, with close-cropped hair and eyes that missed nothing. She wore a crisp uniform with a colonel's insignia and moved with the kind of confidence that came from years of holding power. Miss Brennan? Okoye said. Sarah stood. Yes, ma'am. Come with me. They rode the elevator to the 4th floor in silence. Okoye didn't speak, didn't look at Sarah, just stared straight ahead with an expression that gave away nothing. The elevator doors opened. Okoye led Sarah down a corridor to a small conference room, closed the door, and gestured to a chair. Sit. Sarah sat. Okoye remained standing. You have 60 seconds to explain why you're here, starting now. Sarah didn't waste time. My father was Colonel Richard Brennan. He was killed yesterday after being exposed as part of a military intelligence leak operation. Before he died, he sent me a list of names. People involved in the same network. General Thomas Riker is at the top of that list. Okoye's expression didn't change. Do you have proof? Sarah pulled out her phone and set it on the table. This. Okoye picked up the phone, read the message, scrolled through the list. Her face remained neutral, but Sarah saw the way her jaw tightened slightly when she reached Riker's name. Where did your father get this information? Okoye asked. I don't know, but he marked your name as clean. He wanted me to bring this to you. Okoye set the phone down. Your father was a traitor who got American soldiers killed. Why should I trust anything he sent you? Because he died trying to warn me. Because he knew these people would come after me if I didn't act first. Because he gave me your name specifically. Sarah leaned forward. And because you're the only person on that list marked as safe. Okoye studied her for a long moment. Then she sat down across from Sarah. I've been investigating Riker for 6 months, Okoye said quietly. Off the books. Unauthorized. I had suspicions, but no proof. No evidence. Just patterns that didn't add up and missions that went wrong at convenient times. Sarah's pulse quickened. Then you believe me? I believe your father might have been trying to do one decent thing before he died. Okoye paused. But this list isn't enough. It's just names. No documentation, no financial records, no communications. A defense attorney would rip it apart in 10 seconds. Martinez has more. A flash drive with bank records, message logs, everything. Then why didn't he give it to me? Because he didn't know if he could trust you. Because half the people in command are compromised. Sarah met Okoye's eyes. But my father trusted you, and right now, that's all I've got. Okoye was quiet for a moment. Then she pulled out her own phone and made a call. This is Colonel Okoye. I need a secure conference line with the Inspector General's office. Yes, I know what time it is. This is urgent. She waited. Sarah's hands were shaking under the table. General Crawford, Okoye said into the phone. I'm sorry to wake you, but we have a situation. I'm sitting across from Sarah Brennan, daughter of Colonel Richard Brennan. She's just provided me with intelligence implicating General Thomas Riker in espionage and treason. A pause. Yes, sir. I'm aware of the sensitivity. That's why I'm calling you directly. Another pause. Understood. We'll be there in 30 minutes. Okoye hung up. The Inspector General wants to meet with you personally, she said. If what you're saying is true, this goes all the way to the Joint Chiefs. We'll need everything, the flash drive, testimony from Martinez, witness statements, every piece of evidence you can provide. Sarah nodded. I'll get it. You better, because if you're wrong, or if this is some kind of play, you'll be the one facing charges. Okoye stood. Let's go. The Inspector General's office was located in the Pentagon, buried deep in a secure wing that required 3 separate security checks just to enter. General Arthur Crawford was waiting for them in a soundproof conference room that looked like it had been designed to withstand nuclear war. He was in his 60s, with white hair and a face carved from granite. When Sarah entered, he didn't stand, didn't smile, just gestured to a chair. Sit down, Miss Brennan. Sarah sat. Crawford steepled his fingers. Colonel Okoye tells me you have evidence implicating General Riker in treason. I want to see it. All of it. Right now. Sarah pulled out her phone and slid it across the table. Crawford read the message, his expression unchanging. Then he looked up. This is a text message from a dead traitor. It proves nothing. The flash drive Martinez recovered has everything, Sarah said. Bank records, communications, coordinates for compromised missions. My father was part of that network. So was Riker. Where is this flash drive? With General Kincaid's team. They're analyzing it now. Crawford's eyes narrowed. Kincaid reports to JSOC. JSOC reports to Riker. Sarah's stomach dropped. She hadn't thought about that. Crawford leaned back in his chair. If Riker is compromised, then anything Kincaid has is already in Riker's hands, which means your evidence is either destroyed or about to be used against you. Then we get to Kincaid first, Sarah said. We secure the drive before Riker can touch it. We? Crawford's voice was cold. You're a civilian nurse. You have no authority here, no jurisdiction, no standing. I'm a witness. I'm the person who kept Martinez alive long enough to expose this whole thing. That has to count for something. Crawford studied her. Then he turned to Okoye. Your assessment? I believe her, Okoye said. Everything she's described matches the patterns I've been tracking. The timing, the operational failures, the chain of command. Riker's been insulated, but if we move fast, we can lock him down before he realizes we're coming. Crawford was silent for a long moment. Then he picked up the phone on the table. "This is General Crawford. I need an immediate lockdown on General Thomas Riker's office, communications, and personnel files. Authorization code Alpha 79er. Execute now." He hung up. Sarah's heart was pounding. "If you're right," Crawford said, looking at Sarah, "you've just exposed the biggest intelligence breach in modern military history. If you're wrong, you've destroyed the career of a decorated officer and handed our enemies a propaganda victory." "I'm right," Sarah said. "You better be." Crawford stood. "Okoye, you're with me. We're going to Fort Bragg to personally oversee Riker's arrest. Miss Brennan, you're staying here under protective custody until this is resolved." "No," Sarah said. "I'm going with you." "That's not happening. Riker knows who I am. He knows I have the list. If I stay here, I'm just a target waiting to get hit. At least if I'm with you, I've got a chance." Crawford's jaw tightened. "This isn't a negotiation." "Then consider it a tactical asset. Martinez trusts me. Kincaid trusts me. If you need their cooperation, you need me there." Okoye glanced at Crawford. "She's not wrong." Crawford exhaled slowly. "Fine, but you stay out of the way. And if this goes sideways, you follow orders without question. Clear?" "Clear." They left the Pentagon 20 minutes later. The flight to Fort Bragg took 3 hours. Sarah spent most of it staring out the window of the military transport, watching the landscape blur past below. Okoye sat across from her, reviewing files on a tablet. Crawford was on the phone the entire time, coordinating with DoD officials, FBI agents, and military police. By the time they landed, the base was already on lockdown. No one in or out without authorization. All communications monitored. Every officer under Riker's command confined to quarters pending investigation. Sarah had never seen anything move this fast. They were met on the tarmac by a full security detail, 12 MPs in full tactical gear, armed and ready. Crawford didn't waste time with pleasantries. "Where is he?" Crawford demanded. "General Riker is in his office, sir," one of the MPs reported. "He's refused to come out. Says he wants to speak with his lawyer." Crawford's expression darkened. "Tell him he can speak with his lawyer from a holding cell. Breach the door." The MPs moved. Sarah followed at a distance, flanked by Okoye and 2 additional guards. They crossed the parade ground toward the command building, a massive structure of concrete and glass that dominated the center of the base. Inside, the hallways were empty. Silent. The lockdown had cleared everyone out except essential personnel, and even they were staying out of sight. They reached Riker's office on the 3rd floor. The door was closed. Crawford knocked once. "General Riker, this is General Arthur Crawford, Inspector General. Open the door." Silence. Crawford nodded to the MPs. They used a battering ram. The door exploded inward with a crack of splintering wood. The MPs poured inside, weapons raised. Then they stopped. Sarah pushed forward, ignoring Okoye's hand on her shoulder, and looked inside. The office was empty. Riker was gone, but on his desk, arranged in a neat line, were 3 items: a service pistol, a folded flag, and a handwritten note. Crawford picked up the note and read it aloud. "To whom it may concern, I have served this country for 30 years with honor and distinction. I will not allow my name to be dragged through the mud by liars and traitors. By the time you read this, I will have taken the only honorable course of action left to me. General Thomas Riker." Sarah's stomach twisted. "He's running," Okoye said. "Or he's already dead," Crawford replied. He turned to the MPs. "Sweep the building. Check his quarters. Check the motor pool. I want him found in the next 10 minutes." The MPs scattered. Sarah moved to the desk, her eyes scanning the surface. Everything was too clean, too organized. Riker wasn't the kind of man who left things to chance. This was theater. She opened the top drawer. Empty. 2nd drawer. Also empty. 3rd drawer. Sarah's hand stopped. There was something taped to the underside of the drawer. She pulled it free. A flash drive. Different from the one Martinez had recovered. Smaller. Newer. Sarah held it up. "General?" Crawford turned. Sarah handed him the drive. "He left this." Crawford took it, his expression unreadable. "Why would he leave evidence behind?" "Because it's not evidence," Okoye said quietly. It's insurance. Crawford plugged the drive into Riker's computer. The screen flickered to life. A single video file appeared. Crawford clicked it. Riker's face filled the screen. He was sitting in this same office, wearing his uniform, his expression calm and composed. "If you're watching this," Riker said, "then you've already made your decision. You've chosen to believe the lies of traitors over the word of a decorated officer. So be it." He paused. "But before you destroy my legacy, you should know the truth. Colonel Richard Brennan didn't act alone. He was part of a network that spans every branch of the military, every intelligence agency, every level of government. And I wasn't his accomplice. I was his handler." Sarah's blood went cold. "For the last 5 years," Riker continued, "I have been running the most successful counterintelligence operation in American history. We fed false information to enemy operatives through assets like Brennan, tracking their movements, identifying their networks, dismantling their operations from the inside." He leaned forward. "Every mission that was compromised? Planned. Every casualty? Calculated. We sacrificed pawns to capture kings. And it worked. We've exposed and neutralized 3 major espionage networks in the last 2 years alone." Okoye's face had gone pale. "So yes," Riker said, "I authorized the deaths of American soldiers. I authorized the betrayal of classified operations. I did it to protect this country from threats that would have killed thousands more if left unchecked." He sat back. "But now, because of people like Sarah Brennan and her bleeding heart need for justice, all of that work is about to be undone. The networks we've infiltrated will go dark. The operatives we've been tracking will disappear. And the next attack, when it comes, will be on your hands, not mine." Riker's expression hardened. "I'm not running. I'm not hiding. I'm waiting. And when this blows over, and it will, you'll realize you've made a terrible mistake." The video ended. The room was silent. Crawford stared at the blank screen. "Is he telling the truth?" Okoye asked quietly. "I don't know," Crawford said. Sarah's hands were shaking. "He's lying. He has to be lying." "Maybe," Crawford said. "Or maybe he's exactly what he says he is. A man who made impossible choices to protect his country." "By getting soldiers killed?" Sarah's voice cracked. "By working with my father to sell out missions?" "By playing a game you don't understand." Crawford turned to her. "You wanted justice, Miss Brennan, but sometimes justice and security don't align. Sometimes the people who protect us have to do terrible things, and sometimes we never get to know which side they were really on." Sarah felt like the floor was tilting beneath her. "So what happens now?" she asked. Crawford ejected the flash drive and pocketed it. "Now we find Riker and bring him in, alive if possible. And then we let the people above my pay grade decide what the truth actually is." He walked out. Okoye followed. Sarah stood alone in the empty office, staring at the desk where Riker had sat, where he'd recorded his confession or his justification or his lie. She didn't know which it was, and she had a sinking feeling she never would. What? They found Riker 6 hours later, not running, not hiding, sitting in the base chapel, alone, waiting. When the MPs entered, he stood calmly, allowed them to cuff him without resistance, and walked out with his head held high. Sarah watched from a distance as they loaded him into an armored transport. He saw her. Their eyes met for just a moment. Riker smiled. Not a friendly smile, not a cruel smile, just the smile of a man who knew something she didn't. Then the doors closed, and he was gone. Crawford appeared beside her. "It's over." "Is it?" Sarah asked. Crawford didn't answer, because they both knew it wasn't. Riker would be interrogated, investigated, tried in a closed military tribunal where the evidence would be classified and the verdict would never be made public. And whether he was a traitor or a hero, the truth would stay buried. Sarah's phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. She opened it. "Look deeper. The list your father sent you was incomplete. There's one more name. Check the metadata on the video file." Sarah's breath caught. She looked at Crawford. "I need access to that flash drive." "It's evidence, please." Crawford studied her for a moment. Then he pulled the drive from his pocket and handed it to her. "You've got 5 minutes." Sarah ran. She found a computer in an empty office, plugged in the drive, and opened the video file's properties. There, buried in the metadata, was a second file. hidden, encrypted. Sarah's hands were shaking as she clicked it. A prompt appeared. Enter password. Sarah thought fast. Her father had sent her the list. Her father had marked Okoye as clean. Her father had told her to run, but he'd also told her to finish what he couldn't. Sarah typed, Emerald Crossing 2019. The file opened. It was another list. Shorter. Only 3 names, and at the top, highlighted in red, was a name that made Sarah's entire world collapse. General Marcus Kincaid. Sarah stared at the screen until the letters blurred together. General Marcus Kincaid. The man who'd flown into Ridgewood Memorial to save Martinez. The man who'd authorized the operation to take down Hale. The man who'd personally overseen the arrests, the evidence collection, the entire investigation. The man Sarah had trusted. Her father's final message was clear. Kincaid wasn't the hero. He was the apex predator, and everyone else, Hale, Riker, even Richard Brennan himself, had been working beneath him. Sarah's hands moved on autopilot, copying the hidden file to a separate drive she found in the desk drawer. She ejected Riker's drive, pocketed both, and walked back into the hallway where Crawford was waiting. Well? He asked. Sarah's mind raced. If she told Crawford about Kincaid now, word would spread. Kincaid would disappear. The entire network would scatter like roaches when the lights came on. She needed proof. She needed Martinez. Nothing useful, Sarah lied. Just backup files of the same video. Crawford's eyes narrowed slightly, but he didn't push. We're heading back to D.C. in an hour. You should get some rest. I need to check on Martinez first. Make sure he's stable before we leave. He's in Wyoming. We're in North Carolina. Then I need to call the hospital. Crawford studied her for a moment longer, then nodded. Fine. Make it quick. Sarah found an empty office and closed the door. Her hands were shaking as she pulled out her phone and dialed the secure hospital number. It rang 4 times before someone picked up. Intensive care. This is Nurse Peterson. This is Sarah Brennan. I need to speak with patient Martinez. It's urgent. Miss Brennan, he's sleeping. Wake him up. A pause. I'm not authorized. I don't care what you're authorized to do. Wake him up now, or I'm calling General Crawford and having him do it for you. Another pause. Hold, please. Sarah waited, her pulse hammering in her ears. Then Martinez's voice came through, rough and tired. This better be good. Kincaid, Sarah said. He's the one at the top. Silence. Then, how do you know? My father left another file, hidden in the metadata of Riker's confession video. Kincaid's name is on it. Martinez swore under his breath. Where are you right now? Fort Bragg. Crawford brought me here to arrest Riker. Does Crawford know about Kincaid? Not yet. Keep it that way. Martinez's voice sharpened despite the exhaustion. If Kincaid finds out you know, he'll kill you before you can blink. He's got resources, Sarah. People. Reach. He's been running this network for years. Then how do we stop him? We don't. You do. Martinez paused. You need to get that file to someone outside the military chain of command. Someone Kincaid can't touch. Who? FBI. Specifically, the Counterintelligence Division. There's an agent named Rebecca Torres. She's been investigating military corruption cases for a decade. She's clean, and she's got the authority to move on this without waiting for approval from DOD. Sarah grabbed a pen from the desk and wrote the name on her palm. How do I contact her? You don't. I will. Martinez's breathing was labored. I've got her number. I'll make the introduction. But Sarah, you need to move fast. If Kincaid's people are watching, and they are, you've got maybe 12 hours before they figure out what you're doing. 12 hours to do what? Get to D.C., meet with Torres. Hand over everything, then disappear until the arrests go down. Sarah's throat tightened. What about you? I'll be fine. I'm in a secure facility with armed guards. You're the one walking around with a target on your back. Martinez, don't. His voice softened slightly. You've done enough. You saved my life. You exposed the network. Now finish it. And when it's over, get the hell out of this world and don't look back. Sarah's eyes burned. I'll see you when this is done. Yeah, Martinez said. You will. The line went dead. Sarah sat there for another 30 seconds, staring at the name on her palm before she stood and walked back out into the hallway. Crawford was waiting by the exit. Everything all right? Martinez is stable, Sarah said. We can go. They flew back to D.C. as the sun set over the Atlantic, painting the sky in shades of orange and red that looked like fire. Sarah spent the flight pretending to sleep while her mind worked through every possible scenario, every angle, every way this could go wrong. By the time they landed, she had a plan. It wasn't a good plan, but it was all she had. Rebecca Torres worked out of an unmarked office building in Arlington, 3 miles from the Pentagon, and a world away from the polished corridors of military power. Sarah arrived just after 9 p.m., using a cab instead of a military vehicle, paying cash instead of using a credit card. The lobby was empty except for a tired security guard who barely glanced at her ID before waving her through. Sarah took the elevator to the 4th floor and found Torres's office at the end of a narrow hallway that smelled like burnt coffee and old carpet. She knocked. "Come in," a voice called. Sarah pushed the door open. Rebecca Torres was younger than Sarah expected, mid-30s with dark hair pulled back in a ponytail and sharp eyes that evaluated Sarah in about 2 seconds. She was sitting behind a desk covered in file folders, a half-eaten sandwich beside her keyboard. "Sarah Brennan?" Torres asked. "Yes?" "Martinez called, told me you'd be coming." Torres gestured to a chair. "Sit down and tell me everything." Sarah sat and talked. She told Torres about Martinez, about the mission that went wrong, about Hale and Riker and the network of leaks that had gotten soldiers killed. She told her about her father's death, about the lists, about the flash drive, and then she told her about Kincaid. Torres listened without interrupting, her expression neutral, her fingers steepled in front of her face. When Sarah finished, Torres leaned back in her chair. "Do you have proof?" she asked. Sarah pulled out both flash drives and set them on the desk. Torres picked them up, examined them, then plugged one into her computer. She opened the files, her eyes scanning quickly. "This is good," Torres said. "Bank records, communications, operational data. This is enough to open an investigation." "Into Kincaid?" "Into everyone." Torres looked up. "But you need to understand something. Kincaid isn't just a general. He's JSOC command. He's got friends in Congress, connections at the CIA, relationships with defense contractors worth billions. Taking him down isn't going to be quick or clean." "I don't care about quick or clean," Sarah said. "I care about justice." Torres smiled slightly. "Good, because justice is messy." She picked up her phone and dialed a number. "This is Torres. I need a priority briefing with Director Hamill. Tonight. Yes, I know what time it is. This is urgent." She hung up. "The FBI director?" Sarah asked. "If we're going after Kincaid, we need authorization from the top. Otherwise, his people will bury this before it ever sees daylight." Torres stood. "Wait here. Don't leave this office. Don't call anyone. Don't even think about checking your email." "Where are you going?" "To make sure you survive the night." Torres walked out, leaving Sarah alone in the cramped office. Sarah sat there in the silence, listening to the hum of the computer, the distant sound of traffic outside, the beating of her own heart. She'd done it. She'd brought the evidence to someone who could act on it. Now all she could do was wait. The knock came 2 hours later. Sarah was half asleep in the chair when the door opened and Torres stepped back inside, followed by 3 people Sarah didn't recognize. 2 men in suits, 1 woman in a business jacket, all of them carrying the kind of authority that didn't need introduction. "Miss Brennan," Torres said, "this is Director Hamill, Deputy Director Carson, and Assistant Director Liu. They've reviewed the evidence. They have some questions." Director Hamill was a tall woman in her 60s with white hair and eyes like ice. She sat down across from Sarah and folded her hands on the desk. "Miss Brennan, what you've brought us is explosive. If it's accurate, it represents one of the most significant intelligence breaches in modern history. But before we proceed, I need to know, are you absolutely certain about General Kincaid?" Sarah met her eyes. "My father marked him on a hidden list. Martinez verified that Kincaid was in the chain of command for every compromised mission. The evidence is there." "Evidence can be fabricated," Hamill said. "Your father was a traitor. He could have been setting Kincaid up as a scapegoat. Or he was telling the truth for the first time in years." Hamill studied her. "What do you want out of this?" Sarah blinked. "What do I want?" "Yes. What's your endgame? Revenge? Vindication? A book deal? Sarah's jaw tightened. I want the people who killed Martinez's team to face consequences. I want the soldiers who died because of these leaks to be honored instead of forgotten. I want their families to know the truth. Even if the truth destroys the military's credibility, even if it exposes vulnerabilities that our enemies can exploit? Yes. Hamill leaned back. Then we're going to move forward. But you need to understand the stakes. If we arrest Kincaid and we're wrong, careers will end. Reputations will be destroyed. The entire command structure of JSOC could collapse. And if we don't arrest him and I'm right, then he keeps killing soldiers until someone else stops him. Hamill stood. We'll execute the arrest warrant at 0600 tomorrow. Kincaid will be taken into custody at his residence before he has a chance to run or destroy evidence. You'll be placed in protective custody until the investigation is complete. I want to be there, Sarah said. Absolutely not. I earned this. Hamill's expression hardened. You're not law enforcement. You're not military. You're a witness, and witnesses stay safe until they testify. Sarah wanted to argue, but Torres caught her eye and shook her head slightly. Fine, Sarah said. Hamill nodded. Agent Torres will escort you to a secure location. You'll stay there until we give the all clear. She walked out, followed by the others. Torres waited until they were gone, then turned to Sarah. Don't even think about it, Torres said. Think about what? Whatever stupid thing you're planning. They're right. You need to stay out of this. Sarah said nothing. Torres sighed. Come on, let's get you somewhere safe, Sabdi. The safe house was a nondescript apartment in Alexandria, furnished with generic furniture and equipped with enough security cameras to monitor a small city. Torres showed Sarah inside, ran through the security protocols, and left 2 agents stationed outside the door. Get some sleep, Torres said. This will all be over by morning. Sarah nodded. Torres left. Sarah waited 10 minutes, then she walked to the window and looked out at the street below. A black sedan was parked 3 doors down, engine idling. Sarah's stomach dropped. She recognized the vehicle. It was one of Kincaid's. They'd found her. Sarah grabbed her phone and dialed Torres. It went straight to voicemail. She tried again. Same result. Sarah's pulse spiked. She moved to the door and knocked, calling out to the agents outside. No response. She tried the handle. Locked from the outside. Sarah backed away from the door, her mind racing. The window was 3 stories up. No fire escape, no balcony. The apartment had no weapons, no tools, nothing she could use. She was trapped. A shadow moved past the window. Sarah turned. The door opened. General Marcus Kincaid stepped inside. He was alone, dressed in civilian clothes, his expression calm and almost friendly. He closed the door behind him and locked it. Hello, Sarah, he said. Sarah's back hit the wall. The agents outside are mine, Kincaid said. They've been mine for 2 years. Torres doesn't know. Hamill doesn't know. No one knows except the people I trust. Sarah's hands were shaking. You're not going to get away with this. I already have. Kincaid moved to the couch and sat down, gesturing for Sarah to join him. Please, sit. We don't have much time, and I'd like to explain. Explain what? How you betrayed your country? How I saved it. Kincaid's voice was patient. Your father understood, even if he couldn't admit it. Riker understood. Even Martinez is starting to understand, whether he knows it or not. Sarah didn't move from the wall. You got soldiers killed. I sacrificed soldiers to prevent wars. Kincaid leaned forward. Do you know how many lives were saved because we fed false intelligence to enemy networks? How many attacks were stopped because we knew exactly where our enemies would strike? That doesn't justify... Justify? Kincaid's voice hardened. I don't need to justify anything to you. I've spent 30 years protecting this country from threats you can't even imagine. I've made decisions that kept millions of people safe. And yes, some of those decisions cost lives, but the alternative would have cost more. Sarah's throat was dry. Then why are you here? If you're so confident, why not just let the FBI come for you? Because I'm giving you a choice. Kincaid stood. You can walk out of here tonight. Disappear. Start over somewhere far away with a new name and a new life. I'll make sure you're protected. Make sure you're comfortable. All you have to do is destroy the evidence and forget everything you've learned. And if I say no, then you'll die in this apartment, and everyone will believe you took your own life out of guilt over your father's crimes. Kincaid pulled a syringe from his pocket. It'll be quick, painless, and by tomorrow morning, the investigation into me will be closed due to lack of evidence. Sarah's vision tunneled. This was it. The moment everything came down to a single choice: run and live, fight and die. She thought about Martinez lying in a hospital bed, trusting her to finish this. She thought about the soldiers who died because of Kincaid's lies. She thought about her father, who'd spent his last moments trying to make one thing right. Sarah took a breath. No. Kincaid's expression didn't change. You're sure? I'm sure. He stepped toward her, syringe raised. The window exploded inward. Glass sprayed across the room as two tactical teams crashed through, weapons raised, voices shouting commands. Kincaid spun, reaching for his sidearm. He didn't make it. 3 shots rang out. Kincaid dropped to the floor, blood spreading across his chest. Rebecca Torres stepped through the shattered window, lowering her weapon. Sarah, you okay? Torres asked. Sarah's legs gave out. She slid down the wall, her hands shaking so hard she couldn't control them. Torres was beside her in seconds, checking for injuries. Talk to me. Are you hurt? No, Sarah managed. I'm okay. Good. Torres helped her stand. Because you just took down the most dangerous man in the intelligence community. Sarah stared at Kincaid's body. How did you know? I didn't, but Martinez did. Torres pulled out her phone and showed Sarah a text message. He called me 20 minutes ago, said Kincaid would come for you tonight, said to position teams around the building and wait. Sarah's eyes burned. Is he? He's fine. Pissed off that he's stuck in a hospital bed, but fine. Sarah laughed. It came out half sob. Torres squeezed her shoulder. Come on, let's get you out of here. The next 72 hours passed in a blur of debriefings, interviews, and testimonies that Sarah gave to so many different agencies she lost count. FBI, DOD, Inspector General, congressional oversight committees. Everyone wanted to know everything. And Sarah told them. She told them about Martinez's survival, about Hale's attempted extraction, about Riker's confession, and her father's final message. She told them about Kincaid. The evidence Sarah had provided, combined with Martinez's flash drive and the data Torres's team recovered from Kincaid's personal files, was overwhelming. Within a week, 18 officers were arrested. Within 2 weeks, the entire network had been dismantled. Trials were scheduled. Charges were filed. The story broke on every major news network. And Sarah Brennan, the nurse who'd been fired for caring too much, became the face of the largest military corruption scandal in a generation. She hated it. Martinez was released from the hospital 4 weeks later. Sarah met him at the discharge entrance, watching as he walked out on his own power, moving slowly but steadily. His color was better. His eyes were clear. He saw her and smiled. You look terrible, he said. Yeah, well, media circus will do that to you. They walked to Sarah's car in silence. She'd driven 12 hours from D.C. to Wyoming just to see him, refusing every interview request, every book deal offer, every attempt to turn her into something she wasn't. She just wanted to see the man she'd fought beside, the man who'd survived. They sat in the car for a while, neither of them speaking. Then Martinez said, "Thank you." Sarah looked at him. For what? For not giving up. For seeing past the bureaucracy and the chain of command and all the people who told you to stay in your lane. He paused. You saved my life, more than once, and you made sure my team didn't die for nothing. Sarah's throat tightened. I just did what needed to be done. No. You did what most people wouldn't have the courage to do. Martinez turned to face her. What are you going to do now? Sarah had been asking herself that question for weeks. She couldn't go back to nursing, not after everything that had happened. The hospital in Portland had offered her job back, but it felt wrong. Returning to that life felt like pretending none of this had ever happened. I don't know, she admitted. Torres offered you a job, didn't she? Sarah blinked. How did you know? Because she offered me one too, consulting work, helping the FBI root out corruption in military intelligence operations. Martinez smiled slightly. I said yes. Sarah stared at him. You're serious? Someone needs to make sure this doesn't happen again. Someone who knows how these networks operate. Someone who's seen the cost firsthand. He paused. She thinks you'd be good at it. I think so too. Sarah thought about that. Thought about spending the rest of her life chasing shadows and lies. Thought about the soldiers who'd died, the families who'd never gotten answers. Thought about Martinez, barely able to walk a month ago, now ready to jump back into the fight. Yeah, Sarah said quietly. I think I would be. 6 months later, Sarah stood in Arlington National Cemetery, watching as Martinez's fallen teammates were finally laid to rest with full military honors. The investigation had cleared their names, the records had been corrected, the truth had been told. Their families stood nearby, some crying, some stoic, all of them holding folded flags. Martinez stood beside Sarah, his posture straight despite the lingering pain from his injuries. They deserved this, he said quietly. Yeah, Sarah agreed. They did. After the ceremony, several family members approached them. A woman in her 40s holding a young boy's hand. You're Sarah Brennan, the woman said. Sarah nodded. My husband was on Martinez's team. He was killed in the ambush. The woman's voice was steady, but her eyes were red. I wanted to thank you for making sure he didn't die as a traitor, for giving him back his honor. Sarah's chest tightened. I'm sorry for your loss. I know. The woman squeezed Sarah's hand. But because of you, my son will grow up knowing his father was a hero. That matters more than you'll ever know. She walked away, leading her son toward the graves. Sarah stood there, watching them go, feeling the weight of it all settle into something that wasn't quite peace, but was close enough. Martinez touched her shoulder. You good? Yeah, Sarah said. I'm good. They walked back to the parking lot together, the autumn sun warm on their faces. Sarah's phone buzzed, a text from Torres. New case just came in. Military contractor in Germany, possible espionage. Interested? Sarah looked at Martinez. He raised an eyebrow. Your call. Sarah thought about the nurse she'd been 6 months ago. Quiet, dismissed, easy to ignore. That person was gone, and she wasn't coming back. Sarah typed a response. Send me the details. I'm in. She pocketed her phone and climbed into the car. Martinez got in beside her. So, Germany? Looks like it. He smiled. Good. I could use the work. Sarah started the engine and pulled out of the parking lot, leaving the cemetery behind. The dead had their peace. The living had their work. And Sarah Brennan, the woman who'd been underestimated, dismissed, and nearly killed for refusing to look away, had found something she hadn't expected. Purpose. The road ahead wouldn't be easy. There would be more corruption to expose, more lies to unravel, more people who'd try to silence her. But she'd learned something these past months. The quiet ones, the ones everyone overlooks, are often the most dangerous. Because they see everything, they remember everything, and when they finally speak, the whole world has to listen. Sarah drove west toward the setting sun, toward whatever came next. She wasn't running anymore. She was hunting, and the people who thought they could hide in the shadows had no idea what was coming for them. The war was far from over, but for the first time in her life, Sarah Brennan was exactly where she was supposed to be, fighting for the people who couldn't fight for themselves, standing for the truth, no matter the cost, and refusing, always refusing, to stay in her lane. Because some lanes were meant to be crossed, some rules were meant to be broken, and some nurses were meant to be warriors. Sarah smiled as the city lights appeared on the horizon. She was ready for all of it.